What's up guys, this is Pseychie, and with the upcoming Castlevania DLC arriving presumably really soon, I wanted to take the time and discuss a topic I don't believe I've really touched upon on this channel, and that is the different DLCs that Dead Cells has, and whether or not you should get them. While I originally thought it was kind of a clear-cut decision that a lot of players will have all the DLCs, a simple search on the global achievement stats will reveal that only about 20-something% of all players have the Bad Seed DLC, and less than 10% own the recent Queen and the Sea DLC. So for those that are on the fence about buying any or at all of the downloadable content, whether it may be because of the cost, how much variety they will bring to the table, hopefully I will be able to shed some light on the question of whether or not the extra content will be worth the price. First of all, from someone that owns all the DLCs, they are all pretty equal in terms of how much content there is. Bad Seed and Fatal Falls with 2 biomes and a boss each, Queen and the Sea with 1 biome and 2 bosses. All of the DLCs are $5 each, but often go on sale, plus there is a bundle deal that gives a further discount if I'm not mistaken. If you're watching this as this video is released, then the Steam Winter Sale should still be available and the bundle will be on discount. And since Dead Cells is a roguelike, all of your runs will be different, so every time you visit one of these biomes, its structures are generated randomly, so you can always expect a different experience every time. If you don't own all the DLCs and are unsure which ones to buy, you may think that any one of them may be bought in whatever order, since they roughly offer the same amount of content. However, I think there's actually a nuance to this. I believe that certain DLCs should be prioritized before others, if you are buying them individually. Let's take a look at what they are. Bad Seed offers some much needed early game content and is, in my opinion, the first DLC you should buy if you only own the base game. This is because the new content is available immediately, as you can enter the new biomes right from the first level. Before this DLC dropped, players would only have the choice of going either Promenade of the Condemned or Toxic Sewers as their second biome. And Bad Seed creates more variety when it comes to the early game. It's safe to say that everyone gets to enjoy this new content, as the only requirement is that you have to make it through the first level, which, let's be honest, you can do that, right? The new weapons and outfits are nice, and one thing I do want to state is that all 3 of the existing paid DLCs have varying amounts of new weapons. I really can't make a recommendation for a certain DLC on the sole reason that its unlockable weapons are stronger than some of the other DLCs. The game constantly goes through balance changes, and what's strong may often be subjective, so the best way to see if you like the weapons is to try them out yourself. Moving onwards to the second entry, Fatal Falls. This is, in my opinion, the second DLC that you should consider, assuming that you're enjoying the game and want more variety in your runs. Fatal Falls offers mid-game content, as the new biomes take place right after the first boss fight. I definitely would say it's not for everyone, as you have to be good enough to make it to the mid-game to actually access the new content. But if you can consistently make it this far, regardless of boss cell level, Fatal Falls will surely provide some entertainment. The new Scarecrow boss is probably one of the harder bosses in the game, so be prepared to lose some runs before mastering it. One more thing. Ever since the legendary rework, the new Fractured Shrines biome has a gate that contains 3 different legendary items where you choose from one. This means coming to the Fractured Shrines has dramatically increased in value. Since legendaries work quite differently than it used to, this altar can prove to be potentially very impactful. Last but not least, the DLC that released almost a year ago, the Queen and the Sea. This is the one expansion where I would say it's actually a bit understandable to skip on if you're still new to the game. The Infected Shipwreck biome and the 2 new bosses replace endgame biomes, and beating the new final boss unlocks a new ending. There are some issues to this approach to DLCs. Since the new content is endgame, you have to make it all the way this far to get access to it. This is probably not an issue if you're just enjoying the game casually, but if you're someone that's gunning for the next boss cell. From the numerous times I've run through these biomes, I can safely say that this route will be harder than the routes that are already in the base game. Not only do you have to go through one of the longest biomes in the game, you also have to fight 2 difficult bosses back to back with no food shop. I've recently discussed this briefly in some of my showcase videos, but I think the inherent problem with creating more endgame content in roguelikes is that because players have to make it through an entire run with without checkpoints, when you do make it far into a run, you probably just want to win. Introducing a harder variant of the final biomes won't be as popular as early game content, as there's less incentive to go there, since doing so will just decrease your chances of winning. Now look, I get it. We all value our time. We don't want to spend 1 hour of our free time in a run just to result in a loss. From a player that's still learning the ropes, the value of going to the new challenging biomes is just not there, considering that you can just skip all that, fight the giant, go straight to Hand of the King, and just winning the run from there. Now that being said, I have stated that all 3 DLCs offer the same amount of content. So if you buy Queen and the Sea, you'll still be getting the same, if not slightly more content than the previous DLCs. On that note, Bad Seed adds 6 new weapons, Fatal Falls adds 7, and Queen and the Sea adds a whopping 10. So at the very least, those 10 new weapons should provide some variety universally. For some reason, the Shipwreck biome from the Queen and the Sea DLC doesn't have any lore rooms, like at all. I can only assume they just haven't gotten the time to add those in, as Bad Seed and Fatal Falls both add lore to the overall universe. For players that already have everything unlocked, this DLC really only adds to the experience, since we don't really mind if we end up losing the run. This is probably also the reason why Queen and the Sea has the least amount of players that own it. All in all, if you really enjoy the game, and you want to support the development, and you don't mind new challenging content, then by all means you can finish off the collection with Queen and the Sea. Finally, to make this video a bit more future-proof, I want to consider the possibility where more DLCs are introduced later, and how that would impact the experience. As you're all aware, the new Castlevania DLC will drop in early 2023, and this one will be a little different than the previous 3. The price point of the DLC will be $10, which is double than what they were before. We can assume that the amount of new content will also be doubled. In addition, since Dracula will be a boss fight, it's pretty safe to say that he will be an endgame boss. So my philosophy in prioritizing buying DLCs should still be somewhat accurate when considering new content being added in the future. If you're a new or learning player still exploring the game, I would personally prioritize early game editions, then mid-game, and finally endgame once you are comfortable with the overall experience. Of course, this is only what I think regarding DLCs. If you have any pointers for aspiring players trying to escape the island of the Malays, be sure to drop them in the comments. Anyways, this has been a brief overview of the Dead Cells DLCs. Enjoy the game if you're new, and I'll see everyone in the new year.